Good evening, sci-fi movie nerds, and welcome to another episode of the Sci-Fi Movie Guy. My name is Mike, and we're here to talk about the best and the worst movies of 2017. So I'm going to give you my top 5 worst movies of 2017, top 5 best movies of 2017, obviously in the science fiction genre. And I'm also going to have some honorable mentions on each side. But most importantly, I want to know what you guys think and what are your best and worst movies in the sci-fi for 2017. So make sure you put your lists in the comments below and let me know what you think of my lists. So I'm going to start with the worst so that we can move on to the best. And first in the worst, I have some honorable mentions. And I think some of these honorable mentions are going to piss people off a little bit. So again, movies are subjective. So what I didn't like doesn't mean you didn't like it. And if you liked a movie and I didn't like it, that doesn't mean that you're wrong or I'm wrong. Because movies are subjective and we all just have a lot of fun talking about movies. So please remember that. These are my worst movies of 2017, but before we get into the 5 worst movies, in my opinion, I'm going to give you some honorable mentions of movies that I did not like. And so our honorable mentions are Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. To me, this was a big letdown from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. While it had some great action sequences and some great jokes, I found myself waiting for the bits that we got in the trailers. I thought the best part of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 were in the trailers. So while I gave it a go and I said it's a fun popcorn movie, it was disappointing. It didn't make my top 5, but it's an honorable mention for top 5 worst movies. Another one is Blade Runner 2049. I was really hoping that I was going to get the Blade Runner movie that I had always wanted to see. No surprise, I've told everyone that I am not a fan of the first Blade Runner. I think it's way overrated because of cult classic popularity over the last 30 years. So this movie fell very short for me. I was hoping it would be great, but it really wasn't. And the last one is Power Rangers. I did not like Power Rangers at all. I thought that it was a movie that did not need to be made. But these movies were my honorable mentions in worst movies of 2017. So let's get into my worst movies of 2017. Coming in at number 5 was King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. This movie took away all the fun parts of the King Arthur legend and then made the movie without them. Merlin was an afterthought. King Arthur was not really King Arthur. This movie fell short on so many levels. The acting in it wasn't very good. The story script was awful. I'm surprised it wasn't higher on my worst movies, but it came in at number 5. That tells you how many bad movies there were for sci-fi in 2017. So let's talk about number 4, and it is The Mummy. Now, as much as I love Tom Cruise as an actor, and I think he's a very good actor, unfortunately, the script they gave him and everything about this movie just completely fell short for me. I am a big fan of the original Mummy movies with Brendan Fraser. I thought they were great. I even liked The Scorpion King with The Rock. But this movie was supposed to be part of a dark universe where they were going to have this shared universe. And I think this movie completely destroyed that shared universe. So for me, it comes in at number 4 on my worst movies, sci-fi movies of 2017. Number 3 is Geostorm. This is a movie that I wish was never made. It was so bad. The special effects in it were not good. For the amount of money they spent on this movie, we should have had great special effects, and they were just okay. There was virtually no script, and it was just another end-of-the-world sci-fi movie. I've had enough of those. This movie did not hit on any levels with me, and I almost walked out of the theater. Getting in at number 2 worst sci-fi movies of the year is Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. How many more times do we have to pay Johnny Depp? He is not a good actor. He has had a couple of good movies in his career, but this movie was absolutely the worst of the worst for the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. They have to stop making these. Please stop making these. I feel bad for kids that go and see these and they're spending their money on these movies, so please stop making them. And the number 1 worst science fiction movie of 2017, without a doubt, was Transformers: The Last Knight. Now, I don't know what you people over in Europe and Asia, and everyone else are doing. But these movies keep making tons and tons of money, and they're horrible. This was the worst of all of the Transformers movies. Um, you know what? There was no story whatsoever. It was just a bunch of transforming robots, machines, killing people, fighting with each other. And this would have made even a worse cartoon, I think. It was just bad. We had a lot of bad movies in 2017 science fiction. And now we're going to get into my best, which I think this year really was not the greatest for sci-fi movies. There was a few nuggets in there, a few good ones. I do have a couple of honorable mentions that almost kind of made the list that I thought we should talk about. So my honorable mentions are Spider-Man Homecoming. While I liked this movie and it was a great popcorn movie, I didn't think it needed to be seen in the theaters. It was a great origin kind of story, and Tom Holland, who plays Spider-Man, did a really great job as Peter Parker. I like the fact that it was set in a school. Again, it didn't make the top 5. All in all, this was a good movie, but it wasn't enough to make it into the top 5. Then we get It, which I know a lot of you are going to say is a horror movie, but really it did fall into the science fiction genre. I was very, very impressed with this movie. It really told the story of the book, the first half of the book, and I can't wait to see the sequel, but didn't quite cut it to get into my top 5. And then we have Justice League, to which a lot of people hated this movie. I really liked it, and I thought that DC was really correcting the course. Unfortunately, they had a split movie here with Zack Snyder and Joss Whedon doing it, and I think if they would have just had the Zack Snyder version or just the Joss Whedon version, I think we would have had a better movie. They just released a script online of what the movie could have looked like. I really like that script. But this movie was still overall, to me, a good movie in 2017. Now we'll get into my top 5. So coming in at number 5 was Wonder Woman. This, by far, to me, is the best of all the DC Extended Universe movies so far. I love the connection that we had between Steve Rogers and, I think that's his name, Steve Rogers. I know that's Captain America, so it doesn't sound right, but between Wonder Woman and the pilot, played by the immortal Chris Pine. He was fantastic in this movie. And Gal Gadot, she really played well off him. But this was an ensemble cast. The crew that got put together to go out in this movie was fantastic. So I really, really liked this movie. Then we get into number 4, which was Thor Ragnarok. Now, I love the Thor movies. I honestly think that the first Thor movie is the best of all the Thor movies. Then it would come in Thor Ragnarok and finally Thor Dark World. But I can't say there's a bad Thor movie made, in my opinion. I liked all 3 of them. This one, Taika Waititi took this movie to the next level with comedy, which was phenomenal. But at some points, it just got a little bit too comic booky for me, which is fine. It's a comic book movie. It's a Thor movie. It's a superhero movie. So this came in at number 3. Really enjoyed this movie. Sorry, came in at number 4. Now at number 3, we've got Logan. And by far, for me, this is the best X-Men movie of all the X-Men movies. But it's not a superhero movie. This movie is more like a Western in the superhero genre. And probably Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart's best performances, I think, ever almost. Patrick Stewart for sure, his best performance ever. Hugh Jackman as Logan. What a fitting end to the Wolverine character. I don't want to get into any spoilers, but Logan definitely comes in at number 3. Probably could have been number 2, but edging it out just ever so slightly was War for the Planet of the Apes. This movie hit me on so many different levels, emotionally, spiritually. Seeing this war, well, it wasn't really a war. It was kind of this war inside their own souls of what they had to deal with and grasp. It was so moving at the end of this movie. I don't want to give away any spoilers, like I said, but I think this is the best of all the Apes movies in this trilogy, although the first one for me was really, really good as well. This is definitely a must-see. And finally, my number one movie of the year, and this is going to be so controversial for a lot of you out there, but I've seen it 5 times, and it's Star Wars The Last Jedi. No surprise there. This movie hit on so many different levels for me. When I first saw this movie for the first time, I came out of the theater going, what did I just see? There was so much there for the Star Wars fan who has read all the books, watched all the animated shows, watched all the movies, and this movie had so many little things in it that were really good to me. But I went with somebody who isn't a huge Star Wars fan, and they absolutely loved it too. There's some directorial choices in this movie by Rian Johnson that missed with a lot of people. And you know what? Again, I said movies are subjective. If it missed with you and you didn't like this movie, I'm not saying you're wrong, but for me, it hit. And it hit hard. I've gone back to see it 5 times. I'm going to probably have to go see it again. A little later on, I'm going to be doing my top 10 Star Wars movies in order of I like, once I figure out where this one fits in. But Star Wars The Last Jedi, definitely the best movie of 2017 in the sci-fi genre for me. But it doesn't matter what I think. I want to know what you guys think. Please let me know in the comments section. You can also send me an email, movieguySciFi@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter @movieguySciFi. I hope you and your family have an amazing 2018. Happy New Year, everybody. And remember, nerds rule the world.